Sonny Dykes told the media how long the Frogs will be without Hauss Henjy, and I'll tell you why I think that means we can see more Hauss this season here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are either at or near 1,200 subscribers, which is cool. So if you want to help us reach that milestone, please subscribe. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Appreciate you listening, watching, whenever and wherever that is that you do that. Thank you for making us part of your day. Sonny Dykes spoke with the media today. He had some injury updates, some guys that were injured in that Stanford game, and then also a few updates on players that were either limited or didn't play at all during the Stanford game. So Hauss Henjy, the freshman quarterback, made an appearance in game one in the third quarter. They put him in. He had a run for 8 yards, handed off the ball, and then tried to run the ball himself. Appeared to get tangled up in a pile, lost a couple yards. He didn't lay on the field, and there wasn't an injury timeout. He just sort of limped off under his own power, and then Josh Hoover came back in the game. Sonny says that he'll be gone for at least 2 weeks, probably 2 weeks, and then he could be available again, which it looked – he was on crutches on the sideline, which I get they're very cautious with any sort of injury just because, hey, keep him off, keep that weight off of it until we get an MRI, an X-ray, whatever the case is, so we can know what the situation is. But still, it didn't look great on the field and on the sideline, but it'll apparently be available not too long in the future if rehab and everything goes correctly. And then Major Everhart, who is the Frogs kick returner and also could and might get involved in the offense depending on, just what they do this year and how much they rotate receivers. He's also going to be out for a couple of weeks with an injury. So disappointing news there. Major's a guy, like, it's still too early in his career to say this, but I hope he doesn't become a player that sort of gets lost in the shuffle. I do think there's talent there. There's obviously speed there. They're using him on special teams. Sonny Dykes talked about him and Jordan Bailey both and how they impressed the coaching staff during camp. They looked like different players. They just looked like they knew more about the offense, understood their responsibilities, were playing faster. So hopefully he can get healthy and he get more involved in this offense. Sticking on the receivers for a second. Well, actually, let me go back to Hauss. Okay, so the Henjy thing is interesting to me. And I talked about this after the ball game. It was very bizarre. Now that they put him in the ball game, I mean, I've been talking all offseason about how I wanted to see him get some snaps. And I didn't really think TCU needed to worry so much about the red shirt. I get it. This is your guy of the future. I just feel like in today's era of college football, you can't get too caught up in red shirt situations because with the transfer portal, if you're not giving guys opportunities to play, then they could look elsewhere. And that's not me having any inside information about that. I'm just saying in general, right? But when we talked to Jamie Plunkett a few weeks ago, I asked him about Hauss, and he was like, well, they're definitely going to redshirt him. So he's going to play 4 games. And, I mean, maybe that's still their plan. I just think the timing of putting him in the ball game was very strange if they were planning on only playing him for 4 games this season. Because it was in the third quarter, in a game they were trailing. You would think he would have gotten a lot of reps this week against Long Island, hopefully. At least maybe the entire fourth quarter if things went right and they handled their business. So that would have been 2. And then you only got 2 more games throughout the year. It wasn't like they had a huge lead. They weren't trailing. Game was still very much in the balance. And it really felt like they were just sort of trying to find a spark for the offense, which was kind of strange because I didn't think Josh Hoover was playing poorly. But I just thought that was weird timing if the ultimate plan for this season was, hey, let's just, keep this guy healthy, allow him to get some game experience, maintain his eligibility, and move on with, the next season. Odd timing to me to put him in the ball game. But if he's available after a couple weeks and they want to use him in different spots, then they can do that. And you got 3 more games to get in some snaps. So we'll see how they play that moving forward. Okay, going back to receivers, hope Everhart gets healthy. He could be a boost in the slot, even though they got good experience there with J.P. Richardson. They did not rotate a lot of guys at receiver on Friday. Jack Bech played pretty much every snap. Savion and J.P. Richardson played a bunch of snaps. Eric McAllister only played 3. Dalen Wright didn't play. Now, Sonny did say Dalen Wright was going to be available. And now the question is, okay, Jack Bech started outside wide receiver out of necessity on Friday night, had a monster game. Do you keep him there? Do you move him back to the inside of the formation? And Sonny said they're probably going to roll with the guys that played Friday night, at least to start, because those dudes were super productive, right? Eric McAllister also expected to get more snaps this week. So I don't know if that was a health issue. I don't know if that was just like, we like what we got rolling right now. We're not going to mess with it. But it's something to watch because, I mean, I thought the receivers played well Friday, so I'm not complaining about this. And I'm not questioning the coaching staff. It's just odd that during fall camp, they talked about, how impressive Dalen was and Eric, and Dalen ends up getting the starting job, at least according to the depth chart. And then he's out because of injury. Now that he's fully healthy, I'm sure we'll see more of him. It'll just be interesting to see how they work that rotation moving forward because, you got some dudes there. And last year they rotated receivers a lot. And Sonny expressed his frustration about, it just felt like we never had guys in practice. Like somebody would get healthy and then they would get hurt. And so they'd be out of the lineup for a little while. And then somebody else would get hurt. And so they'd be out of the lineup. And that rhythm and chemistry never really developed until the end of the season with Josh and a couple different guys. But if this is who Hoover's comfortable with, then you keep rolling it out there until it doesn't work and you need to shake things up. Just something to watch there with the receiver rotation. Another thing that he mentioned that stood out to me just because of how the game went, he said he liked that they got Ben Taylor Whitfield, the sophomore lineman, some reps at tackle behind Bless Harris. They also got Remington Strickland in the game to give Colton Deary some spells. So, we talked about having the best 5 linemen on the field. I'll tell you, Ben Taylor Whitfield played a good number of snaps Friday night. And I don't know if I'd go as far as to say there's a competition battle there, but it sounds like they're going to make a conscious effort to, at least at certain spots in the O-line, try to keep those guys as fresh as possible. And, if you can afford to do that, that's awesome. We talk about the lack of depth in the trenches, and we talk about elite teams. One thing that typically separates really good teams from teams that are not on that level. Excuse me, I'm dealing with voice issues today, so I might take some more breaks for water, that type of thing. Apologize to the audio audience for that. But one thing that separates elite teams is they generally have really good rotation in the trenches. But typically it's on the D-line, right? Because you're always moving guys in and out. And we saw a number of pass rushers in that TCU game. Saw Marcel Brooks break through, and Sonny talked about how proud of Marcel he was and just happy for him given how his career's gone and dealing with injuries and getting moved around different positions throughout his career. But if you have the ability, I think at a certain point, they'll probably get to a place later in the season where that becomes less of a factor, rotating O-linemen. He did say, though, that at least with Colton Deary, he talked about him specifically, they feel like he's better when he's fresh. And so if they can give him a couple drives where he can, take a break and get Remington Strickland out there, and there's not much drop-off, then you could see that. Bless Harris has had injuries throughout his career. He's dealt with that. So if you can give him some opportunities during the game, take some of that physical load off of him, then that could pay dividends throughout the season. So we'll see how it shakes out. I liked the play of the O-line in general Friday. They really, in the passing game especially, they were going with a lot of quick game stuff. And you'll see a lot of that in this offense. But there were not a ton of traditional dropbacks. That being said, I mean, they did what they're asked to do, kept the QB clean as much as possible. And I thought the run game got better as the game went on. Now, one thing Sonny mentioned that I didn't really point out, he did say that Stanford put out a completely different defensive front than they prepared for. So I don't know exactly, I don't know if it was a numbers thing. They had an extra guy on the line, if it was just alignment with the gaps, but apparently it was a surprise to TCU, at least initially in the first half. And so that was one of the things that they were adjusting to as the game went on, just trying to figure out, like, okay, what are we doing here? He also said that he felt like last year's team would not have won that game, just with all the mistakes that they made, the adversity that they faced, and some of that adversity was self-inflicted, but still, the issues that they faced during that ball game, last year's team probably wouldn't have found a way to get it done, but this year's team did. And when they had, critical drives, right? Like when you had to go down and score after Stanford took the lead with about 7 minutes left, they went and did that. When the defense had to step up and make a stop after that drive, they did that. Offense, they were able to score a touchdown and make that a 2-score game late and really put any doubt to rest. So that's execution in critical moments that they did not have last season. And it's exciting, to see this team thrive in those specific moments and in that situational football like they did on Friday night. Okay, so Long Island this week. We're going to have, hopefully, we got them booked. We're just, making sure everything's going to go smoothly. But Ron Cooper, Long Island head coach, he's going to join us tomorrow. And he'll be on Thursday's show. So that'll be fun. Get to hear from the man himself as they prepare to come down and play TCU. FCS opponent, they lost to Albany in their season opener, 27-21. Albany, one of the better schools in FCS. Sonny mentioned today they're typically a conference champion. And so Long Island's got some dudes. But, this is a game where the goal is really to work on yourself. Figure out some personnel things. Run your offense and defense efficiently. Work out some issues. And get ready for that test against UCF in the coming weeks, and then SMU after that. So big-time football getting set up for the stretch run. Before that, you got to do what you can do against Long Island, and hopefully it's a comfortable win for the Frogs. A team that struggled against an FCS opponent this weekend, Texas Tech. How did they fare? How did other teams do? We'll talk about that next in the Big 12 Whip Around. This is Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. All right, love talking about our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel, they've been one of our longest tenured sponsors here on the Locked On Network. They always have great deals for you. It's America's #1 sports book. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com today. Again, one $5 bet, and you can get 3 months of NFL Sunday Ticket for free with YouTube or YouTube TV. FanDuel, give them a try today. America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, time for our Big 12 Whip Around segment. We'll do this every Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's where we stop down and take a look at, okay, what did everybody else do in the Big 12 this weekend? I'll tell you what, man, it's getting kind of overwhelming as the league expands with all these games going on, but it'll be fun to just quickly run through the scores. Utah beat Southern Utah 49-0. Cam Rising, first game in basically 2 years. He was really good. 254 yards, 5 touchdowns. Utah defense did their thing. Kyle Whittingham's teams, always fundamentally sound, always physical. It was fun to get JT Broughton in purple and see him play on Friday night. Thought he did a really good job being physical. the refs let him play, and he played into that, which is what you want your corners to do. So excited to have him on the team. And, yeah, big-time win for – not, it was Southern Utah. But it was a good, clean, easy win for Utah to start the season and what you would expect from a team that's ranked in the top 15 in the country. Kansas, they blast Lindenwood 48-3. Jalen Daniels in limited action looked good. Devin Neal had 112 yards on 8 carries. Kansas defense did their thing. Again, that was a Friday night game, I think, but playing an FCS opponent, doing what you can. So much of Kansas' season is going to hinge on how healthy is Jalen Daniels, what can he do, is he going to be limited at all. And he looked good, Saturday night. I don't think people always realize how good he could be. He had that game against TCU a couple of years ago where he got hurt in the first half. He wasn't playing great before that against the Frogs. But last year, there was some Heisman buzz before he got hurt. So he's a really good quarterback, explosive player. UCF, they handled New Hampshire 57-3. KJ Jefferson, 164 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Did have 1 interception. That'll be a big test for TCU in a couple weeks. They got some athletes, man. That team has really benefited in a short sample size, obviously, but it looks like they're going to continue to benefit from big alumni base, being in a major conference, and a talent hotbed like the state of Florida, where you don't have to go far to get big-time players, but you also have to have success on the football field, and that's going to be the real key for UCF. Can they find a way to, get to a place where they're making that happen on a more consistent basis? Colorado, they beat North Dakota State 31-26. Listen, I know a lot of people aren't going to give Colorado props for that. I was fairly impressed with that win. North Dakota State has been really successful against FBS opponents the last few years, and I think they represent a lot of what Colorado doesn't with their physicality, their consistency. But Travis Hunter, Shadur Sanders, they were too much. And they held on and won that game in Boulder. So I don't know if Colorado's I don't think they're a Big 12 title contender, but they're a talented team. And I feel like they're going to give people fits all season long. Of course, we know what happened with TCU Stanford. Frogs win that one 34-27, even though it's always, still good to see it, still good to hear it. Oklahoma State, they take care of South Dakota State 44-20. Ollie Gordon, 104 yards on 27 carries, 2 touchdowns. Alan Bowman threw 3 touchdown passes. Oklahoma State looks the part. They just look like a team that knows what they're doing. Mike Gundy has figured it out, and they're going to be a force in the Big 12 this year as well. Penn State, all over West Virginia, 34-12 in Morgantown. Kind of a weird game. Went through a lengthy weather delay. I have not been on the West Virginia hype train. There's a lot of people that have been, talking about them as a dark horse. It just feels like a team that's going to regress. They surprised a lot of people last year, and so I felt like this offseason a bunch of people overcorrected, and they're like, well, they're just going to be so much better than we think. I don't know. Garrett Green, I get it. They beat TCU last year. I understand all of it, but I think West Virginia is a pretty pedestrian team when it comes down to it. Cincinnati, they beat Townsend 38-20, so they get a victory there. Iowa State only scored 21 points against North Dakota, but they did win 21-3. Baylor beats Tarleton 45-3. DeQuan Finn, new quarterback. He did throw 2 picks, but ran the ball well, made some big time throws. UNLV all over Houston 27-7. I'm a champion of the Willie Fritz hire, but man, that was a rough day at the office. Surprisingly, this game was so lopsided. Arizona State wins 48-7 over Wyoming. Arizona State was picked to finish last in the Big 12. Thought that could be more of a dogfight with the Cowboys, but they handled their business and got it done. BYU beat Southern Illinois 41-13. Cougars play SMU this weekend. Need them to take care of the Ponies. Need them to get it done. Texas Tech, 52-51 in overtime over ACU. They stopped a 2-point conversion to win that ball game. Tech defense looked bad. Their pass defense looks really bad in this ball game. Maverick McIver, former Tech quarterback, he's at ACU now. He threw for over 500 yards. They got some things to figure out, but they did escape with a victory in Lubbock. And finally, Arizona over New Mexico, 61-39. Shootout of the ball game. But Terriota McMillan, their wide receiver, 10 catches, 304 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's a heck of a stat line. Super impressive. That Arizona offense is legit, man. And that'll be another team that TCU gets to play later on this season. So it'll be fun to welcome them to the Carter. I'm not sure if that's the first time, but first time in a long time if it's not. When we come back, we'll get some of your reaction and wrap things up. It's Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. eBay Motors, you know the deal. You can't play around with your car. And if you need a part for your vehicle, millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Use their guaranteed fit program. You simply type in the make and model of your car, pick the part you need, put it in the shopping cart, and the check mark will go green if it's a good fit for your vehicle. Whether you're trying to upgrade your vehicle or just maintain it, eBay Motors is the place to go. You can't mess around with your ride, especially in the state of Texas, which I know a lot of you are. That's how we get around, man. Not a ton of public transportation. You need a vehicle to get around. ebaymotors.com. Do it today. Find the part for your car. Yesterday's show, if you want to check it out, I spoke with Matt Jennings, freelance writer. We did our weekly kind of wrap up of the game. Some of you had thoughts, comments on YouTube. Ryan says, I have to say, I really liked watching Josh. He seemed ready to take control of the offense. The dude's got it. Like all the between the year stuff, I think he passes with flying colors. It's really just about ability and can he become a more polished quarterback over the years. But, I mean, by all accounts, work ethic, fantastic. Seems to have a good handle of the offense. And you're right, he looked confident on Friday. I mean, for the most part, making good decisions, making good throws. I think this is a dude you can win with. I don't know if he'll ever be an elite guy. And what I mean by an elite guy is like, can he by himself, just the sheer talent level, really take a team to the next level? But I think there's a way that you can build an offense around him and build a team around him that has a ton of success. And I feel like TCU can do that this year. Vince Pryor says, I reserve the right to comment until after the UCF game. Yeah, I get it. I mean, they got more to prove. Like they beat Stanford. We expected them to beat Stanford. We expect them to beat Long Island. And then the schedule gets tougher. But that being said, you got to win the games in front of you. L. Gray says, I don't completely understand the exaggerated Kendall Briles slander right now. First game of the year, a couple fumbles and 34 points. I'll take it. Well, I don't think we were slandering Kendall at all. I feel like we were pretty positive overall. I still have some issues with some things that he does, but overall, I think he did a good job calling plays. I did notice 247 Sports, they do each week, they go by each conference and they name coordinators of the week, and they name Kendall the OC of the week, or the coordinator of the week in the Big 12. So I think he's getting some praise. But yeah, TCU fans, there are some that are obviously frustrated with them. And play calling is like that. Fred Gibson says Cam Cook is good, but he needs a 1-2 punch. He's not a bell cow. Give Dominic Johnson at least 5 carries. He's big with wiggle, as well as he can finally get a fair chance to show it. Yeah, I was surprised he didn't get more opportunities. I'd like to see him get the ball more. Trey Sanders didn't get a lot of carries either. It was really just Cam Cook. So I think we'll see more rotation as the year goes on. You know, Dominic also he recently got to campus. So hopefully he can get more acclimated. And I think maybe those opportunities will come. But I agree with you. I'd like to see more of him on the field in the coming weeks. Jacob Langford says a couple of penalties were not warranted. I saw worse penalties in Notre Dame that were not called. Refs were flag happy, which made him not happy, but whatever. Yeah, they were. I will say, I mean, they did let the DBs play, which I was thankful for that. But I thought a couple of those personal foul calls were silly too. Ty Jones says TCU has an improved defense. Hoover appears to be good. However, the rushing offense is horrible, especially up the middle. I kind of disagree with that, but I need to look at the stats again. I thought they ran the ball a lot better in the second half, even on, the more traditional design run stuff. But I'll look into that and talk about it more on tomorrow's show. This is Locked on Horned Frogs. We'll have Ron Cooper, a Long Island head coach, on tomorrow. It's your team every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcasts.